Hi, this is Cheryl Matson again, and this is assembling 10 face masks in a flash. And this is an activity that your whole family can get involved in. So if you've got the little kiddos at home and maybe your spouse or your partner is there with you, everybody can get involved in this. So it's a very fun way to do these, and you may be tired of making them the other way. So let's get started. When yesterday in part 1 I talked about the PDF files, you should not have to take any notes, because what I'm going to talk about today is everything should be here for you. This is the fabric cutting instructions, this is your supply list, and this is what you're going to be watching me do right now, and it's very defined of what I'm doing. So just watch and then you'll know what I'm doing. This has a description of how to make different sizes of masks. So if you have this little grid, we're looking at that. Set it aside. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a ruler. This is a piece of non-woven, non-fusible interfacing. And this is going to be used as the filter between the fabric layers to filter out the air for us. You can use a fusible, but the drawing I'm going to do, you're going to want to do on the non-bumpy side. Now this is a washable Crayola marker, and that's what I use. It's good to wash off, because boy, if you have the kids involved, it might get pretty hairy. So let's get this. You're going to take this ruler again, you're going to line it up right here. You see where that says 8 inches. You'll line it up on the edge of this cut piece of interfacing, and then you're going to take this ruler and butt it up against it like that. Now we can move this ruler, and you may be wondering what this little post-it is on there for. Well, it's just a little reminder. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw on this, and this is probably the most boring part of the video. But I draw that line, and then here I'm just going to make a little mark there. So I'm going to move this out of the way. Now I'm going to line this ruler up at 7.5 inches on that line. My fabric straight here. And if you can see the 7.5 inch mark, then I'll do the same thing with the ruler, and I'll just draw this line. And I'm going to probably speed up here so that we can get right through this, and I will mark this whole thing so you see it really doesn't take that much time. There. Down here, let me pull my fabric down. My husband John is filming for me, and he's trying to follow me in all this, but he does a great job. Thank you, John. Okay, so line this ruler up. Got a little mark. We have room for one more. Now you can see this interfacing is a little bit long. These lines that I'm marking right now are the bottom of the masks, and they're also your stitching lines. These little cross marks that I put in, you'll need to back stitch there, because you're going to be cutting the masks and you'll want to reinforce. Now we're going to move back up here at the top, and now I am going to position my ruler so that it is 7 inches on this marked line. Now I'm going to put my ruler back, but I'm going to do something a little different with it. I've got some more post-it notes here that I'm going to position every 3 inches as little easy reminders, so I don't have to try to keep reading the ruler. I've got a reminder, and this make it kid-friendly too, as an activity they can do for you. Whoops. Okay, so I'm going to put those on there, and you're probably wondering, what on earth? Okay, so what here, I'm going to start from this edge. I'm going to stop at that post-it. That's 3 inches. I'm not going to mark here. This will be the opening on the mask. but I'm going to put a mark there. I can come across here, put a mark there and there. Here's another mask opening. There's 2 masks across and 5 down. So now you can see I've got this line there. We're done with the big ruler, and now we're just going to come down to this line that we drew first, and we're going to line up the 1/2 inch mark on the ruler. If you can see, that 1/2 inch mark lines up on that ruler, and we're going to finish it out with lines like this. So we're just going to go here, there, there, and you can see that your kids could probably do this for you. And they're home now, and there's just, you know, families are going a little stir crazy, and they were helping you to make masks for the community. It would give them a sense of contribution as well. And you know, masks for nursing homes are in high demand. And for the elderly people, the best type of masks are the ones with the elastic that goes over the ears. Now, if you have made masks, you know that you may be putting a pipe cleaner in to kind of hold things over the nose. Well, if you're doing things for nursing homes, you don't need the pipe cleaner. You just need to sew it around. And because they're ill most of the time, they may go through several a day, and they're getting so ill. Okay, that is the whole grid marked. Now that really didn't take me all that long. So now I'm ready to sew. These are all my sewing lines, and I'm going to pull one out that I've sewn and show you what it looks like. So to get this pulled together, we're going to spread it out for you. I've taken 2 pieces of fabric. I put them right sides together, and you can see that not all fabrics are created equal. This fabric is definitely shorter in width than this one. So put them right sides together, put your interfacing on top. If you're using the fusible, fuse it to the wrong side of one and you'll have your lines. I've put pins around to hold it in place, and I want to show you that this is one mask and this is one mask. So now what we're going to do, take my little pins out of this end, have one there. If you will position this ruler, some more pins out, to trim these ends up, position it 1/4 of an inch. Put a 1/4 of an inch on that line that you have stitched. I like to use a rotary cutter with a 60mm blade, and use a sharp blade, and this is definitely not something for the little ones. These things can really cut and cut deep. So we're just going to go along there. I'm going to trim this end off. You never want to push down too hard on your rotary cutter, because one thing that does is it dulls the blade, and it also will cut your mat. So if you will just gently use that ruler, it will save your blades, because those things are expensive. Okay, so now we're going to again line 1/4 of an inch up on this. Get our rotary cutter, and we're just going to cut this off. And you can see here, look at the difference on this end of the fabric. These are right sides together. Whoop, got a little one hanging on there, doesn't want to separate. There, we got it. So you'll trim it up, take the pins out, and now the next step we're going to do is we're going to cut it, these tick marks where we back stitch. Remember I said we're back stitching to reinforce? We're going to cut this right down the middle. These will be 9 inches from either side. Now I've already got one cut because it's kind of boring watching me cut too. So let me set this aside and we'll get our next thing out here for you to look at. And here's what it looks like when you get it cut in half. We are now ready to put either the ties or the elastic into this, into these masks. So let's do the ties. First thing I'm going to do, I'm using the twill tie that there was a knot tied in the end, and that's what I showed you on part 1 of the video. So if you haven't done that before, take a look at the video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go through the middle of there, flatten this out, take it up to that stitching, pull it back, and I'm going to put a pin in it. I like to put my pins, look, I've got marker all over me. I like to put my pins away from where I'm going to sew, and I am going to sew here. That way I don't have to take them out and I can just keep on going. So I'm going to put another one in this side, and this one will go on the bottom of the mask. And when I say the bottom and top of the mask, this opening is always the top. So you'll need 10 to go along this side, 10 ties. Okay, so we'll do this. Okay, you're going to continue putting these ties in just one side. So you'll put one here, 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 and all the way down for all 5 of these masks. Once that's done, then we're going to sew them. And let me show you what you do. You get that one side done. And here's one that's all done for us. There's so much to explain, and I've tried to really get everything together so I can explain everything at once. As you can see, both sides have been sewn. But that first one you put in, you're going to sew, and I want you to back stitch over the top of each one of the ties, or elastic. If you're putting elastic in, you want to back stitch because it reinforces it. Once you get one side done, then you go ahead and slip them in the other side, and you just put them in the pocket that's formed there, pin them, and you'll do the same thing, stitch down and back stitch over each one. Now we're almost done with 5 of the masks. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the masks. And I'm not going to do them all, I'm just going to do one because there's things that we're going to see otherwise. So I'm going to line my 1/4 inch of my ruler up right there on that stitching line, and I hope you can see that 1/4 inch. Find my rotary cutter. And now I'm going to separate this mask. So I'm going to cut down there, and this is why I say use a 60 millimeter. It'll cut through layers a lot easier. It's a lot more for these big jobs. It's like I need to change my blade. And there's a mask cut apart, and you can also see I use different fabrics. Makes it fun. Both sides of the mask don't have to be the same, and so it'll just make it different for you. Now the next thing I'm going to do is these corners, and John, if you can try to zoom in here a little bit. I don't want to cut into that seam, but I do want to reduce some bulk in this corner. So I'm going to cut these corners off, and you'll leave a little bit of that. This helps you so when you go to turn them, the corners out, they're going to come out a lot sharper. Okay, so now I'm going to turn this out, and let's just see what this mask looks like. Hold my straps and start pulling them out. Okay, so maybe this is the most boring part of the video. I don't know. Okay. I'm going to get this turned, I promise you. Okay, I'm pulling that strap a little bit. Okay, here's our little mask, almost done. Now I like to use, this is one of my favorite turning tools. Boy, I got some ink on me. This is an RNK turning tool. I like this one because it has this nice ball on the end, so it's not going to poke a hole in my fabric. And it's really great because you can run it along your stitching line and pull those seams out too. You can also use a bone turning tool. And these come in a lot of different shapes, and I would use this end because it's not as sharp as that one, because that will poke a hole in the fabric. So now we're just going to take this turning tool, and if you can see, I'm kind of running that along the seam, and I'm going to come up here and I'm going to push that little corner out right there, make it nice and flat. That goes along the seam. So I'm going to do this on all of them. See how it just pops that right out of there, and you can go along those seams. Once you get these all turned out, I want you to go ahead and iron it again, and put a little starch on there, press it up, and get it nice and flat. Now I'm going to show you one with elastic in now that's been all pressed. Let me move some of this stuff out of the way. And excuse me. Okay, on the elastic, if you are not comfortable putting all your elastic along the whole edge like we did in this one and sew it, you can just cut your masks apart and then put the elastic in, or you can do it just like we did the ties. But it only takes 2 pieces of elastic for the ear pieces. 4 ties, 2 elastic. These are 7 inches long. If you're going to cut them apart, here's what I like to do. And again, you can either put these along the edge and pin them, or you can do it this way. This makes it easier to get them lined up for me. So I'm going to turn it right side out. And this is why I said to back stitch if you're using elastic. Now if you're going to put your elastic in like you did the ties, you won't need to. So now I'm going to take this elastic, because I don't want it all twisted, and I'm going to just line it up there with my stitching line. I'm going to get a pin, and I'm going to kind of put a little double thing in there. Again, you can see I'm pointing the pin to the edge where I will sew on this edge. Now, so I don't twist the elastic, I can pick it up and I can easily bring the fabric forward to me. Hold that in there. I'm a little slow here on this. Okay. And then you would put your other elastic, you would pin that. So you'd have both of your elastics pinned, and then you're going to be mindful of the pins, and you're going to turn it wrong side out again. And the reason this was easier for me, and you may be more coordinated than I am, is because you see how the elastic bunches it, and it was easier for me if I did them this way. I could control the masks more. I did do what is called assembly line sewing on the masks. So here's my masks. And I started sewing here one side, and I sewed along here. I did not cut my thread, and I sewed the next one in, and I kept going until I got to the end of my masks. This side hasn't been sewn, so now I'm just going to turn it around. I'll assembly line sew these sides, cut them apart at the little tag there, and then turn them inside out just like I did the one with ties. So once we get those pressed, and here's one that I've pressed, and it has elastic on it, and you can see the opening is still not been closed. So what I'll do is I will finger press this over, and then you can take your iron and iron it a little bit better if you want. And you see how it is starched, and so it makes it nice and crisp. And you'll notice on the supply list I said get you a 1/2-inch strip of template material, or you could use a thin piece of cardboard or even some folded paper that gives you a 1/2 inch on that. So this is where this kind of gets, hopefully John you can catch this all right on the video. If not, just say hey and I'll move it around so you can see it. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your ruler and you're going to put this ruler at 2 3/4 from the top of that mask. You're going to put your little plastic there, remove the ruler. We're going to fold this over onto that plastic. Let's get our edges straight. This plastic makes it easier to fold these pleats. It's kind of hard to get them all lined up otherwise. So I'm going to tuck that in there. I'm going to do a little finger press with the help of that little template in there. Now I'm going to fold this piece back. And John, can you see this all right? I'm going to fold this back, and this is lined up with the edge of that little template. Let me kind of pick this up so you can see. Can you see that little template there? It's lined up right with the edge. Now if you'll notice, this gives me nice, crisp lines here. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get me a couple of pins. And again, I'm going to pin this toward where I'm going to sew. I can move this template out a little bit now. And I'm going to pin this in place like that. I'm going to do the same thing on this side, and it just makes it so much easier to, I didn't get all the way through. You want to go through all the layers of fabric. Okay. I'm going to come over here. To me, that just made it easy to sew, so I didn't have to try to finagle it even. Okay, once we have that one pinned in, we're going to get our ruler again, and we're going to put this at 1.5 inches from the bottom of that pleat. We're going to put our template right there, at the bottom of that, and then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to fold this back. I'm going to finger press this so I get a little bit of a crease. Then I'm going to come back, and I only put 2 pleats in the masks. A lot of people will put 3. You really only need 2, and by having 2, it comes down over the chin well, and it's going to protect you. So now again, I'm going to put a pin in here where I've got that. There's my template. This one, we finger pressed it so it's falling right in place for us. Sorry about that noise. There's something I'm bumping here on the bottom of the table, so it's making a clang noise. Now, as you can see, those came out nice and even on those edges for me. Now, I did talk about this in the first video, but I want to bring it up again in case you didn't watch it. When you're sewing these masks, making ties with the mask, you want to have the proper needle size. You're going through a lot of thicknesses of fabric. So optimally, you'll use a 116 needle size. Minimally, you'll use a 90-14. These needles are designed for heavy corduroys and denim jeans. And you'll want something like that to help your machine get through this. So that's what you're going to do. Okay, then the next thing you're going to do with this, you've got these pressed under. Your little opening is all pressed under there, and hopefully yours is more even than mine. And now you're going to go to your sewing machine, and I like to start up here where the opening is, and you're going to stitch 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch, whatever you're comfortable with, but go around this whole mask here and then back stitch here. So let's look at one that's been done. We're going to move on to the next. Okay. And here's one that I've done just that. I've stitched around, and you see mine is a little bit wider, and that's okay. And see those two pleats? It just makes it great. You can open that mask up. Now this one actually has the pipe cleaner partially attached, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. And then I'm going to show you, we're going to pretend this one has been stitched around, and we're going to put it on. On the cutting instructions, you'll see that I had you cut a 5.5 inch strip of fabric. These are 5, this is 5.5, and that seems to be wide enough. I like to finish these edges, and I don't know if you can see well enough, but I've just taken a little blanket stitch with my machine and gone along the edge. You might have a serger. I did a fun little decorative one on that one. Here's another color. Make the masks fun. The nose piece where the pipe cleaner is a way for you to maybe personalize these masks to distinguish whose mask is whose in the house. So here you have these with the serged edges, and I'm going to cut a 2.5 inch strip off of there. So this is 2.5 by 5, could be 5.5, and I liked this to go with the opposite fabric I have for the denim, and it was cute here too. So this is how you can personalize things. You're going to take this little piece of fabric here, and you're going to again get a washable Crayola marker, and this one just happened to be pink. You're going to line your 1/4 inch up here on the edge, and then just draw a line. Okay, the top of the mask then, you're going to line the 1/2 inch mark up at the top of your mask. And if you can, you see how I'm kind of trying to center the ruler. I've got a mark here and a mark here, and there's about an 1/8 inch either side. This is going to help me center my mask. You're going to take this line that you've drawn. Oh, excuse me, let me back up. After you draw that line, you're going to go to the iron, and you're going to press this in half and make yourself a little crease there. Then we are going to put this, and you're going to try to center it on here. So we've got 1.5 inches there and 1.5 inches there. So you're going to butt this up against that ruler. We're going to pin it, and again we're pretending that we've gone all the way around this mask with the seam allowance. Put some pins in. And the reason I do these this way, have you ever tried to thread a curtain through a curtain rod and there was a seam in the way and you couldn't get the rod through, it got stuck? By doing the edges of these pipe cleaner casings in this way, you're not going to get the pipe cleaner cut. So here we have 1/2 inch from the top, we've centered it, it's on there, and now we're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to back stitch here, sew across, and back stitch here. Then we'll take the pins out, and you'll see the mask I just had over here. If I can find it again. John, do you see it? It's buried.
That one?
Which one? Oh, right in front of me. Thank you, dear. So you can see here I've sewn this down here and back stitched. It has been ironed in half. Now I'm going to finger press a little 1/4 inch seam there. I'm going to wrap this around the mask. You can see the stitching line there that I did before. And now I'm just going to pin this in place. If you're a pinner, pin it in place. And you notice I always put the points of my pins toward where I'm going to sew. Now I'm going to start here. I want to back stitch this to secure it, sew across here and back stitch. And once you have that done, you're ready to put the pipe cleaner in. And here's how you do that. Here's one that's got it all on there. It's got all the casing on there. And you just get a pipe cleaner and you're going to thread it through. And you want to thread it through so you have about a 1/2 inch on each end.
Go.
Sorry, our our camera timed out, so I'm going to finish this up with this little bit of video. We have cut the pipe cleaner. It's about a 1/2 inch from either side. I'm going to then fold this pipe cleaner over to the length of that casing. See how easy this is? We don't have to do a lot of measuring. Now I'm going to bend this up this way, and I've got my little bend. Now I'm going to fold these in, and the reason you do this is because these are sharp little wires and you don't want them sticking anybody. So I fold these over so they have these nice little ends, and I'm going to slide this back in. Now you do have to remove the pipe cleaners when you wash them, but by pre-washing all your fabrics and everything, you're not going to have to worry about shrinkage or anything else, but do remove those pipe cleaners. And now we've got the pipe cleaner in. Fix it around our nose, and you can see that's a very nice fitting mask. Thank you for watching.